You did not do much today. Maybe a few calls, some emails, a bit of admin. Nothing particularly demanding. Nothing that should have left you exhausted. And yet, here you are. Empty, flat, running on nothing. Not the satisfying tired of having worked hard. The hollow tired of having done almost nothing and still having nothing left. The kind of tired that does not respond to rest. You sit down to recover, and you still feel drained an hour later. Your brain was not resting. You just could not see what it was doing. There is a neuroscience term for the specific mechanism generating this exhaustion. It is called the Zeigarnik effect. It was documented nearly 100 years ago, has been replicated hundreds of times since, and most people who experience it every single day have never heard of it. Once you understand it, you will recognize it in every flat, mysteriously depleted day you have had since you started working. In 1927, a Lithuanian psychologist named Zeigarnik published a finding that changed how we understand the brain's relationship with incomplete tasks. Zeigarnik had noticed that waiters in coffee houses seemed to remember the details of unpaid orders perfectly, but forgot them almost immediately after the bill was settled. She designed a series of experiments to test this observation. She gave participants tasks to complete, then interrupted some of them before they could finish. Later, she asked them to recall the tasks. The interrupted tasks were remembered at nearly twice the rate of the completed ones. Her explanation was elegant. The brain keeps an active, energy-consuming record of incomplete tasks. It holds them in a kind of cognitive queue, periodically checking whether they have been resolved. This record does not switch off when you stop working. It does not pause when you sit down for lunch. It runs continuously in the background, consuming working memory and cognitive energy, until the task is either completed or explicitly closed. Every incomplete task on your list, every email you have not replied to, every conversation you are avoiding, every decision you have been putting off is generating a continuous low-level activation signal in your working memory right now. And that signal costs energy. Not the energy of focused work, the energy of sustained background processing. The kind of drain that is invisible, because no single task feels heavy enough to explain the fatigue it is producing. The scale of the invisible load. And here is what makes this worse than it sounds. A 2019 study by Masicampo and Baumeister at Wake Forest University showed that unfinished goals intrude on cognitive processing even when the person is trying to concentrate on something else entirely. In 1927, a Lithuanian psychologist named Zeigarnik published a finding that changed how we understand the brain's relationship with incomplete tasks. Zeigarnik had noticed that waiters in coffee houses seemed to remember the details of unpaid orders perfectly, but forgot them almost immediately after the bill was settled. She designed a series of experiments to test this observation. She gave participants tasks to complete, then interrupted some of them before they could finish. Later, she asked them to recall the tasks. The interrupted tasks were remembered at nearly twice the rate of the completed ones. Her explanation was elegant. The brain keeps an active, energy-consuming record of incomplete tasks. It holds them in a kind of cognitive queue, periodically checking whether they have been resolved. This record does not switch off when you stop working. It does not pause when you sit down for lunch. It runs continuously in the background, consuming working memory and cognitive energy, until the task is either completed or explicitly closed. Every incomplete task on your list, every email you have not replied to, every conversation you are avoiding, every decision you have been putting off is generating a continuous low-level activation signal in your working memory right now. And that signal costs energy, not the energy of focused work, the energy of sustained background processing. The kind of drain that is invisible, because no single task feels heavy enough to explain the fatigue it is producing. And here is what makes this worse than it sounds. A 2019 study by Masicampo and Baumeister at Wake Forest University showed that unfinished goals intrude on cognitive processing even when the person is trying to concentrate on something else entirely. Participants who had an important unfinished goal showed measurably worse performance on unrelated tasks, not because they were thinking about the goal consciously, but because their working memory was actively maintaining it. You are not distracted by your open loops. You are depleted by them. There is a difference. Distraction. You can notice and redirect. Depletion happens underneath your awareness. You just feel the output of it at the end of the day. The Zeigarnik effect is the foundation, but there are 3 specific layers of invisible cognitive load that most people are carrying simultaneously, compounding the drain. Layer 1. Task open loops. These are the obvious ones. The email sitting in your drafts. The project you have been putting off starting. The conversation you need to have but keep avoiding. The decision you said you would make this week. Each of these is an active entry in your cognitive queue, checked periodically by your working memory, whether you are consciously thinking about it or not. Most people are carrying between 15 and 40 of these simultaneously on a normal working day. The combined drain of 30 low-level cognitive activations is not trivial. Layer 2. Relational open loops. These are less obvious. The conversation that ended awkwardly and was never resolved. The message you sent and are not sure how it was received. The relationship where something feels slightly off but has not been addressed. The person you have been meaning to call back for 3 weeks. Relational open loops are processed by the brain as social threat signals, which means they activate not just the working memory queue, but also the amygdalin's monitoring system. They generate both cognitive depletion and low-level anxiety simultaneously. Most people have more of these than they realize. Layer 3. Ambient information load. This layer is the most invisible. Your brain is continuously processing environmental information even when you are not consciously attending to it. News you scrolled past, a podcast playing in the background, a conversation you half heard, a notification you glanced at. None of these felt like work, but each one required your brain to evaluate and categorize incoming information. Research from Gloria Mark at the University of California, Irvine on interruption and cognitive recovery shows that even brief, apparently trivial information inputs have measurable effects on cognitive resource availability. You are not consuming content, you are processing it. And processing has a cost, whether you feel it in the moment or not. Think about the last day you felt genuinely clear, not productive necessarily, not busy, clear, where your thinking felt unobstructed, where you could sit with one thing without your mind pulling toward 10 others, where rest actually felt like rest. Most people can remember a specific day like this, a holiday morning before the messages started, the first day back after completely switching off, a Sunday so quiet that even your own thoughts went still. That clarity is not a personality trait you lost. It is what your cognitive system feels like when the queue is empty and the background processing has stopped. When there is nothing left open, nothing being checked, nothing waiting. You are not a different person on those days. You are the same person with a cleared working memory. Quick, honest inventory before the fixes. Right now, how many of these do you have open? 1. At least one work task I have been putting off for more than a week. 2. At least one message or email I have not replied to and feel slightly guilty about. 3. At least one conversation I need to have but have been avoiding. 4. At least one decision I told myself I would make but have not. 5. At least one thing I said I would do for someone that I have not done yet. Drop the number of these that apply in the comments, because that number is a direct measure of the cognitive load your working memory is currently maintaining. This is the part that most people find hardest to accept. Resting does not close open loops. Sitting on your sofa does not empty the cognitive queue. Watching television does not resolve the incomplete tasks your working memory is maintaining. The Zeigarnik effect runs regardless of whether you are working or not. The only thing that pauses it is either completing the task or explicitly and deliberately telling your brain that the task has been deferred to a specific future time. This is why you can sleep for 8 hours and still wake up tired. Your body rested. Your working memory did not. The queue was still running. The background processing continued through the night, and you woke up with the same cognitive load you went to sleep with. It is also why doing nothing feels so draining. You are not doing nothing. Your brain is doing a great deal. It is just doing it below the level of your awareness, in a way that consumes resources without producing anything visible. The exhaustion is real. The cause is just invisible to you. You have not been resting. You have been draining without producing. That is a specific kind of exhaustion that requires a specific kind of solution. Now, stop. Before the fixes, one more piece of the mechanism. When your brain is not actively working on a task, it does not go quiet. It switches into what neuroscientists call the default mode network, documented by Marcus Rachel at Washington University in 2001. The default mode network is the brain's resting state activity. And resting state here does not mean inactive. It means actively processing self-referential information, past events, future concerns, social relationships, unresolved problems. Your default mode network is not rest. It is your brain reviewing the open queue using the energy that focused work just vacated. When people say their mind will not switch off, they are describing the default mode network doing exactly what it was designed to do. The question is whether it has anything useful to process, or whether it is running your open loops on an endless, unproductive cycle. So here they are, 3 specific protocols. Each one addresses a different layer of the invisible load. Fix 1. The daily capture. Once a day, do a complete brain dump of every open loop you are aware of. Every task, every conversation, every decision, everything you said you would do. Write it all down in one place. The act of externalizing the list closes the Zeigarnik loop by giving your working memory a concrete record it can point to, rather than maintaining the loop itself. Research from Baumeister and Masikampop's 2011 study in psychological science shows that simply writing down an intention to address an unfinished goal significantly reduces intrusive thoughts about that goal. The capture does not have to be long. 15 minutes, every item out of your head and onto paper or a trusted system. The working memory queue empties. The background processing reduces. The invisible drain decreases. Fix 2. The deliberate close. For every item on your capture list, you need either a completion or a deliberate deferral, not a vague intention to do it eventually. A specific date and time when you will address it. Research on implementation intentions, studied extensively by Peter Gallwitzer at New York University, shows that when people specify exactly when and where they will address an intention, the cognitive resources allocated to maintaining that intention are released immediately. Your brain accepts the future date as a closure. The loop closes. The energy is released. This is the specific mechanism that makes proper task management systems so effective for energy, not just productivity. They are not about getting more done. They are about closing the loops that are draining you whether you are working or not. Fix 3. The information diet. Ambient information load is reduced by deliberately limiting the volume of inputs your brain is asked to process on any given day. This is not about avoiding news or becoming uninformed. It is about batching information consumption so that your brain processes it in defined windows rather than continuously throughout the day. One news check instead of ambient news. Podcasts only on commutes instead of as background. Social media in a defined window instead of passively throughout the day. The cognitive cost of information is not in its content. It is in the processing demand it places on your working memory. Reducing the frequency of inputs reduces the processing demand. Not the quality of information you receive, the drain it creates. Here is what people report when they implement the daily capture and deliberate close consistently. Not just more productivity, a qualitatively different quality of rest. The evenings feel different, the mornings feel different. Not because they are doing more, because their working memory has fewer open files to maintain. The brain can genuinely idle instead of running the queue in the background. The clarity you remember from that one good day is not a memory of a lucky break. It is a memory of what your cognitive system feels like when the load is actually clear. You can have more of those days, not by resting more, by closing more. You were not resting. Your brain was running background processes on every unfinished task, unanswered message, and unresolved decision you have been carrying. The exhaustion was real. The cause was just invisible to you. Until now. The mystery exhaustion you have been carrying is not a mystery. It is working memory maintaining an open queue that you never close. It is your default mode network running your incomplete tasks on an endless loop while you try to rest. It is ambient information load, processing itself below your awareness and depleting resources you could not account for. 3 specific changes. A 15-minute daily capture that empties the queue. A deliberate close that tells your brain exactly when each item will be addressed. An information diet that batches your input processing instead of spreading it continuously through the day. None of these are productivity hacks. They are nervous system management. The goal is not to do more. The goal is to stop draining without knowing you are draining. Save this video. The next time you find yourself exhausted on a day where you barely did anything, come back to this. The drain had a cause. Now you know what it was. And if you know someone who is always tired, always slightly overwhelmed, always behind despite working hard, send this to them. Because they are probably not managing their time badly. They are managing their cognitive load badly. And that is a completely different problem with a completely different solution. If you are not here to stay average, subscribe.